Right now, we have Mr. Shubham Dumbre with us. Hi, Shubham. How are you?
Hi, Sophia. I'm fine. Thanks for asking. How you doing?
I'm just doing well. Earlier, also, he did the life mapping. That was the first part where he explained about the resume, the CV, the biodata. So, this is second part where he's explaining about the job portals, etc. etc. So, Shubham, are you ready with the session?
Yes, all set, Sophia.
All set.
So, hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Shubham Dumbre back with another Power Pack session, I would say. And this is an extension of the last session which we had that was on life mapping, resume, CV, and biodata. So, this time we have the continuation that is life mapping for career audit, job portals, skill assessment, and test platforms. Very first thing that we have to clarify and we have to map out what exactly is an imposter syndrome. Let's understand that. Now, what happens when in careers we are planning to shift careers, or probably when we are just at the verge of starting a careers? At that point, we think that we know nothing. We are like not very much acquainted with what industry actually wants. You think like you don't deserve success. You always think that you will never be enough, and you don't need anyone. You like to be alone, and there's no one in life who will help you, and your accomplishments also don't matter a lot, and you are all alone. Like, these are all negative thoughts that come into mind when people are like applying for jobs and they don't get considerable responses. And at that point, then we think that am I really the one who is fit for that job? This is not just in case of the ones who are actually applying for jobs. This also is applicable for the ones who are in some jobs, who are currently working on some of the other roles. And after a point when they are like they have attained, you say, some sort of stability or some sort of maturity in their job, after that point they tend to feel that, am I really doing justice to the role? Am I really contributing my best? Am I really giving my best to the opportunity that I am working on? And at that point we start thinking that what others are thinking about us. And like, if you see this circle very carefully, what we know, that is what I know, is very small, but what I think other people know is like surrounding what I know. And that is the reason many a times we tend to make mistakes. Our decisions are on the basis of what people think instead of what we think, what we know, and what we do. And that is the reason we tend to live in a fake world, in a virtual world which does not actually exist. And we tend to change our decisions, our career paths, depending upon other people's thoughts and other people's discussions. And that is the reason this imposter syndrome is really risking our future. What happens after a point, we might think that we are not in control of our own life, not in control of our own career. And here at this point we would need to map out that whether are we suffering from an imposter syndrome. Now, here you don't need to worry that even if you are suffering from an imposter syndrome, you are the one who can help yourself. If you have someone who can mentor you, that person can be resourceful here. But generally, people tend to be shy. They don't come out with such kind of things when they are facing such kind of problems. And you might see that imposter syndrome might exist in all of us at some or the other point, but we need to assess it, we need to map it out, and then really rectify the problems what we are actually facing. So now let's see some examples of imposter syndrome. Nate, the CTO, says that with every new challenge, I doubt my ability. So now here again, doubting abilities is something that is a part of imposter syndrome that also falls under the problem that is imposter syndrome. So if you see, these all are successful people. If you see the designations, one is CEO, one is vice president, another one is CPO, CTO, but somewhere or the other they are not much satisfied with their performance, with their job, with their justice to the role. And that is the reason they are sounding negative. And that this is what is termed as imposter syndrome. So now, what kind of imposters? There are different kinds of imposters. Generally they are classified into 5 types. And why is this imposter syndrome actually taking place? It is just because of the mental health. Now, we whenever we talk about mental health or stability and all that stuff, at that point we generally tend to avoid such discussions, because we think that anything related to brain or mind is like not very much mature. It's like not accepted worldwide. And if I say that I'm suffering from such kind of an illness like imposter syndrome, then people might laugh at me, or probably they might bully me out and all that stuff. But generally speaking, guys, we need to make sure whether are we really a victim of such kind of a syndrome. Because due to our constantly changing work habits, due to our lifestyles, the pressures that we handle, the timelines, the deadlines, our KRAs, and all that stuff, we knowingly or unknowingly become a victim of such kind of problems. And here at this point, it becomes really necessary for all of us to find out what problem we are actually facing. And let's now understand what are the different kinds of imposters. So the very first is the genius one, the genius imposter. Now this genius imposter thinks that if you have to work hard for it, you are an imposter. So the genius one is like, he thinks he has to work very hard for it. The expert one believes that they have to know everything before they act. So the expert one will always try to like be 1 or 2 steps ahead, and he or she would like take a lot of effort to know everything before they take any action or decision. The soloist would always think that he is a fraud, and will accept and he would seek help from others. So he'd always take that sympathy card out, and he would say that he's lonely, alone, and all that stuff. So that falls under soloist. The perfectionist would always think that the failure will help them to learn, and then it will be helping them to earn the high standard. But their failures are also somewhere or the other resonating with the fact that their work or their impact that they're creating is like not much suitable for the environment there. And the superhuman one actually pushes themselves to work harder, so that they are really like cautious. They don't want to be exposed because they are always worried that whether people will give them the kind of attention they are earning or they have at this point. And that is the reason superhuman always tries to push themselves to you say grab attention and always stay in the news. So these are the 5 types of imposter: the genius, the expert, the soloist, the perfectionist, and the superhuman. And now when we discuss about mental health, so at that point we need to be sure that are we really happy, are we really satisfied with the kind of lifestyle we have, the kind of work we are doing. And if we are not, then we probably need to assess what exactly is going wrong, why are we sad and why are we not happy. So we, in order to like earn that happiness, attain that satisfaction, so there are 4 tactics that can actually be used to overcome imposter syndrome. The very first is listing down all your achievements. So whatever you have achieved till date, whatever you have achieved in your whole lifespan, is something that needs to be noted down in a very organized manner, so that it becomes a complete list of whatever things you have done in life till now. And then you can project what you actually want to attain in life, because it will give you a glimpse of what all experiences you had, what all achievements, attainments you have got, and that would really help you in planning your future or career ahead. Secondly, value your perspective. It is not like always we have to worry about what others will think. It is very important to also respect your own perspective, because it is always said that your perspective is what comes from your thoughts, your words, and actions. And that is the reason your perspective also counts a lot. It's not like we should not listen to others. We should definitely listen to others, but the final call, the final decision is always ours. So we should be sure enough to take it ourselves, because any which ways life is a different question paper for all of us, and we cannot copy anyone else. So we need to take our own decisions and be capable enough to face the challenges that we might come across. Third is embracing your strengths. So in when we will list down all our achievements, and when we get to know that yeah, these are my niche domains, or probably these are my capabilities, these are some points where I see that I am performing well, I'm doing well. So particularly I could embrace my strengths, I could work more on them. I would try to enhance my personality, I would try to enhance my communication skills and all the skills, so that it would help me in generating a better lifestyle, in getting a better future. And that is all possible because imposter syndrome can be tactfully solved by using or embracing your strengths. And most important is real talk, talking about your feelings. So as I mentioned before, that we can talk to our mentors, we can talk to our friends. I understand that there has to be certain limit in order to talk to each other. But in case you are not happy with something, in case you are you say that not satisfied with something that's happening in your life, you should discuss with your close ones, and actually try to come up with a solution that would actually relax you out, that would give you happiness, relaxation, and you say a sense of satisfaction. So that is the how you can overcome the imposter syndrome. The tips are: list your all your achievements, value your perspective, embrace your strengths, and talk about your feelings. Now, another thing that we should be very sure on are facts and myths. So now, what is a fact and what is a myth? Let's see an example. So myth is that humans have only 5 senses, that is sight, hearing, smell, tactile sense, and taste. But the fact is that we have at least 21 senses. Example, sense of balance and temperature. Now, since our childhood, we have heard this that humans, or you say living beings, generally have five senses. But the fact actually is, medically proven, medically researched fact is that we have around 21 senses. So, what is the problem then here? Is a myth that is true, or is a fact that is true? So, myth generally comes with generalization. Like, it is understood just because many people say that, or we believe. It is like a sense of faith, a sense of understanding amongst people, and they tend to carry out such thoughts ahead because those are the ones which are actually heard a lot many times. While facts are something which actually are researched, which are scientifically or mathematically understood, proven, and facts actually are the ones that are in that exist in reality. Now let's have a very good relating example. So coronavirus, myths and facts. So corona's myth is that corona is the most dangerous virus that exists. That is what we have heard from our media and all that stuff. But factually, if we talk, the common flu kills 60 times more than the annually killing coronavirus. So now here, if we see statistically, if we see mathematically, if we see in the medical perspectives, we see that common flu is like killing 60 times more than the coronavirus if we see an annual demographic. So second myth is that I will die if I'm diagnosed with the coronavirus. This is what we people have a sense. People are really cautious. People, many people even in rural areas were like not sure whether they should go for the vaccination because they were very worried that they would get some kind of fever and there won't be any cure for such kind of problems. But if we see factually, only 2% cases have been reported as dead ones, like the 2% deaths have happened, and these deaths were all because mostly it was found that it was due to a weaker immune system. So one very good relating example is due to the old age, because in older age we generally see that people don't have that kind of a strong immune system to fight the virus, and that is the reason. Factually, if we talk, only 2% cases were the ones which were actually reported as deaths. And even in the news, it was being reflected that coronavirus patients are regularly adding up, but they are also being treated and are sent home. So if we see, it is not what we thought of, but actually the reality in medical terms, in mathematical terms, is different. So third is that I need to buy a hazmat suit and a N95 mask to stay protected. This is what a myth is. But washing hands and sneezing into elbows is the best practice, factually speaking. Then fourthly, we all need to panic and blame China for emergency. I should also make insensitive jokes about this is what a myth actually existed and actually is still existing in the time right now. But the panic and hysteria has become, that's happening is fueled by racism and unwanted feelings, sense of hatred, and this should actually be avoided because being rude is not the right thing, blaming someone is not the right thing. So we should not panic. That is what factually is right. And lastly, it is that everything that we are seeing online is true. That is what we are actually believing because we have nothing else to do. We all have shifted from offline to online. But misinformation and you say wrong facts, which are actually also known as myths, are making this a bigger problem. So we actually should be very sure that we are getting the right set of information and which is factually correct. That's about myths and facts. Next, another interesting concept that we need to understand when we talk about life mapping, and that is, while auditing our careers, many a times we think of ourselves like we are the greatest one, we are the biggest one. If you see here, this gentleman sees himself in a mirror. He is actually very pale, slim, but he sees himself with a six-pack abs and all. So his perception says that he is a very strong man and all that stuff, but in reality, he is like a pale guy. He is not even, you say, matching the criteria for a healthy gentleman. So if you see, perception and reality are two different things. If you see these two guys now, this actually is a very popular image which we have seen a lot many times on social handles. So this guy says that it is 6, while the other one says this is 9. This is just because the way in which they are viewing that particular object is different, and that is the reason both of them have different answers. Now this cat is watching into this mirror and thinks that she is like a lion. And here again, this is what happens with a lot many of us. We think that we are doing something great in our life, and people wonder, people are like really applauding your efforts and all that stuff. And at that point, we tend to create a fake world. We tend to generate such kind of memories that actually are not suitable, that actually are not relevant, that do not even match our criterion. And that is the reason we need to be sure that we are not falling prey to any such fake perceptions, and we actually stay in touch with the reality. So another good example, perception versus reality. 70% of C-suite executives believe that IT function will go under a radical change in the next 3 years. But in reality, 70% of CIOs won't be in the same job after 3 years. That is what is like the reality. And then second point is 46% of CEOs feel that CIO understands their business, while in reality, 75% of C-suite executives want their CIO also to come in the policy formulation part. Why is this so? Because perception, if we see perceptually, it is like technologically we are still advancing, but in reality, the speed that we have gained, the traction that we have with technology right now at this very moment is humongous. It's very vast, and that is the reason C-suite executives actually believe that CIO should be an important person to frame the policies that are coming henceforth. And less than one third of CIOs are performing better. This is what the perception is. But actually, when a CIO is helping to set business strategy, those companies are outperforming their competition. So this is because of the advancement in technology and how technology is helping people to solve their problems. It is connecting everyone online and solving multiple problems at one go. And that is the reason, in reality, if a CIO is actually utilized well, if he is given the power to be in the strategy formulation part, it would really impact the business. So that is the reality. So perception versus reality is like, these are two different concepts that run in parallel. Now let's understand some important part, as we have today's life mapping session on job portals and how to go about the skill assessments, test platforms and all. So very first thing that we need to understand is that how exactly companies hire whenever there is a recruitment drive, whenever there is a career fair. So what exactly company trying to do, what are the different channels by which they are trying to source the candidates. So it's not like companies giving you all the roles, it is opening all the roles for all the candidates. It has certain criterions, and the very first and very important one that we all should be aware of is internal versus external recruitment. So internal versus external recruitment has advantages and disadvantages. So what is internal recruitment? For example, you are particularly working in some company, and your company, you are working into some sales vertical, and your company has a role or job in, you say, marketing vertical. So at that point, if you are a willing candidate that who wants to shift from sales to marketing, then you can apply for such a role, and your company will actually be happy to shift you into the other department, because it won't have to spend a lot much of time, money, effort into finding a new candidate, training that new candidate, making him understand the culture of the company, work and all that stuff, because you are already into the company for a considerable amount of time and you know how the company actually functions. So the primary task that the company would do as soon as it has the role is try to find out the candidates amongst the ones that are actually working with the company, amongst the internal employees of the company at the primary stage. If there is no one who is actually willing to take up the task for that particular role, then the company would pass it on through various advertisements or marketing channels and all that, that there is an opening in the company for this and this role, with the job description and whatever the criterions are. So internal recruitment, in simple terms, we could say better selection for the candidates, as the company already has an assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. So it becomes very easy for the company to judge whether you are the right fit for the new role or not. Secondly, it increases employee morale. And thirdly, it is adaptively very easy, because less training is required and orientation is also not required, because you are already aware about the company, and it is cost effective, as I mentioned. Now, disadvantages of internal recruitment are like, it has limited choice, because there is a definite amount of candidate talent pool in the company. It is restricted. And secondly, failed applicants become discontented. So in case if someone wanted to shift, but he or she did not get a chance to shift to the other vertical, then that candidate would lose motivation, hope. Thirdly, time wasted during interviewing candidates who will not be considered. So this is also again a third thing, that time lags and time waste is something that really is a disadvantage in internal recruitment. Fourth is inbreeding and status quo, and fifth is favoritism, nepotism. So here again, we all know what these factors mean actually. So these are the disadvantages for internal recruitment. And in external recruitment, advantages are like, you have unlimited talent pool. You just need to find it through the right channel. So greater choice for selection, that is one thing. Secondly, balanced HR mix. Third is fairness, because fairness in the process, as in you will have to go through some test at the very start. If you are applying through some job portal like LinkedIn Jobs or Naukri.com or some other portal, at that point, the very first thing is that you need to attempt some assessment test, and there is a HR round, and there is a technical round in case for a technical role, then the salary negotiation part and all that stuff. So there is a fair amount of time for the company to carry out all the processes, but and it is like it is also very important for the company, and it gets simple, it gets easier for the company to understand whether you will fit in the culture of the company, whether that environment will actually be adaptable for you or not. Second, there's that disadvantages of external recruitment actually are like costs, because you need to source the right set of candidates, and that is the reason a lot much of money needs to be put in the marketing vertical, because they will be the ones who will actually highlight the role. Secondly, the adaptability problems, like many a times some people come from an organization that actually had different kind of practices, but now here in the new vertical or organization, it becomes difficult for these new people to adapt, to change, to shift to a new working culture. And wrong selection might also lead to a lot of losses, because it most importantly, the thing that actually is lost is time and money. So it becomes a challenge for the company to cope up with such problems. So this is internal versus external recruitment. And now let's understand what career audit actually means. So in our careers, we all know that these are some keywords which are actually necessary for our growth, and skills, learning, knowledge, ability, training, experience, competence, growth. These are some stages in our life which are very necessary, some key points in our life which are actually necessary for growing ahead in our lives, in our careers. And that is the reason we all need to understand that what kinds of skills are actually required to survive in the industry, what kind of skills you actually need to uh, get your things done in a better manner. So there are three kinds of skills. I have firstly highlighted hard skills and soft skills, and the third part is complementary skills. So let's understand hard skills. So hard skills are technical abilities or something that you have attained over a period of time, and the best examples are like with practice you earn that. It is quantifiable, measurable. And best example is the degree that you earn after your graduation is one good example. Secondly, software proficiency. For example, you can run AutoCAD software very well because you have practiced a lot many drawings on it. Third, you can speak a second language, where German certifications or something of that sort, foreign language certifications. Then programming skills is something that can also be measured, because if you can create a problem solution, then that would really help and benefit the organization. And machine operations, how you operate machines and all that, that these all skills which actually can be quantified, measured, are hard skills. Now soft skills are more focused on the social ability, how you deal with people, problems, and how critically you think. All that comes into soft skills. So in examples of soft skills are communication, flexibility, leadership, collaboration, and teamwork. All right. Now let's go to complementary skills. Now in complementary skills, these skills are actually attained while working into some of the other vertical. These can also be hybrid skills, which can come with combination of two or more skills. So storytelling is one thing, interviewing, writing, newsletters, magazines, thought leadership, social media, news research, messaging, digital video branding, reputation, blog writing, events, communication, lead generation, online sales. All these fall under complementary skills. Now, the primary part that we actually are very interested to know about is job search, and how exactly we should go about it. What preparation you should actually do in if you are applying for a job or if you're trying to shift a career. So, we will today be talking more about how what prerequisites we should be actually ready with in order to go with any successful job application. Now, everybody of us, each one of us, know these two words: chance. We all need a chance, and if we are an experienced professional, then we actually are looking for a change. Both these play a very key important role, because at some or the other point we are looking for a new chance, and at some or the other point we need to change the environment that we are working in, that we are looking for. And that is the reason we need to prepare, search, and take action. These are the three action points that we actually should cater for, that we actually should look forward to. And I have tried to like break it down into 5 simple steps. So the very first is how to get a job stepwise. So firstly, clean your online presence. So now online presence will include all your social handles, primarily LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. If you are using Instagram and all this stuff, if you have something that is unwanted or you feel that is not relevant, then you can probably clean your online presence there and keep it simple, sober, clean, and understandable. If you are like reflecting mostly a LinkedIn profile everywhere in the professional domain, so try to keep it crisp, try to keep it updated, because it is necessary for you to stay and be digitally transformed. Secondly, seek out jobs compatible to your qualifications. So now here the second thing is that if I am a sales guy, then I won't fit into a technical role because I am actually qualified in doing sales. Similarly, if I am a designer and if I am asked to do some marketing role, then I'm not happy with that role because my competencies are different. So that is the reason we should be very sure what exactly are our domains, what are our skill sets, and accordingly we should map out our jobs in accordance with our qualifications. Third is leverage your network. Now, leverage your network actually is a very important point. As I mentioned, there are two kinds of recruitments. One is internal, other is external. So internal recruitment generally happens in the internal teams in the same company or people workforce. But external recruitments actually happen with referrals. So, for example, if someone is working in an X organization, in that X organization, if I am the one who also is applying, so the guy who is already working there or the girl who is actually working there since a long time or has just joined the company can refer me as another eligible candidate. Now, referral policies actually help people to get good jobs, and generally in India, it has been seen that statistically, referrals are also very key important contributors to gaining a very wonderful workforce for the company, and that is the reason all many companies tend to have referral policies. So if you are working in some organization and you have the kind of referral policy in formulation or in place, so you can get some relevant candidates and you also earn something, and also that candidate who is applying for it gets to go through the processes and all in a better manner, in a quicker manner, I would say. And that is the reason leveraging your network is important. And please ask for help if in case you are not sure. Don't be shy in the job world, in the professional world, because unless and until you ask a question, there is no one that who would understand what your problem is and what the answer actually needs to be in place. So don't be shy in asking whatever problems or queries you're facing. In case if you need to understand the process and all, you can ask the professionals, and people outside are ready to help. They are eager to help. They're very helpful, but the only thing is it is you who has to take the chance for the change that you want to look for. Then fourth is harness the power of job search alerts. Now here, job search alerts, for a very good example is LinkedIn job search alerts, because in case if you're looking for any new job, so at that time you can just subscribe, or you can just select all the mailing lists and add in your emails there, so that it gives you latest opportunities as soon as any new company opens, or as soon as there is any opportunity from the reputed ones, so it highlights your mail and then it gets back to your profile. So that is very important to harness the power of job search alerts. And there are n number of job portals, so it is not necessary that you activate all of them, but go with at least 5 to 10 job portals which are actually having a presence in your locality, in your area, in your country. Because according to the analysis, it has been found that LinkedIn Jobs, Glassdoor, Indeed, and then Naukri.com and Monster are some which are actually very effective in India. But according to your demographics and country, it might change. So use any job portals which are actually applicable in your locality, in your vicinity, but harness the power of job search alerts. And last is work on crafting a solid resume. So now we have already worked on the fifth point in the last session. So you can just create a very wonderful resume according to the pointers which we had discussed in that session, and then create a wonderful profile, hit the right set of opportunity. Also, one important aspect that we need to cover today is cover letter. So cover letter is a letter which is also sent in parallel with the resume or CV that you're sending. So cover letter generally, what important pointers we need to take care is, it should be one page. It is a personalized greeting. So in cover letter, it is kind of a semi-formal letter, I would say, not purely formal, not purely informal, where you are personalizing your greeting and you are trying to share the HR or the talent acquisition professional, whatever you have done till now, in a letter format. And whatever the company is, you need to be very sure that you have gone through the job description beforehand, so that while writing you can highlight relevant experiences that you have matching with the job criteria. Then fourth thing is being confident. Confidence is something that will actually matter in a lot many roles. Many companies have training programs, leadership programs, and all that stuff. But you will only get a chance to enter into those if you have that confidence to break the interview. If you have the chance to crack that particular interview round, and that is only possible by being confident. I'm not saying to be overconfident. I'm not saying to be underconfident. I'm saying to be confident. That is, keep your eyes on the sky but toes on the ground. That is very important. And include numbers, quantify things which you have actually done, which are necessary, because numbers are the ones that actually speak in today's data driven world. So include numbers wherever possible. Cover letter goes, it is not necessary that you should always have a cover letter, but it is considered to be a good practice if you have a cover letter in addition with your resume or CV. Now, next part comes the skill assessment and test platforms. So, test platforms might vary according to organizations, because some organizations believe that they should have their own test platforms. So, very good example is TCS. So, TCS has its own custom test assessment platform. Then again, I have heard about different companies having their own test assessment platforms. And while researching, I also came across some very popular names in the assessment platforms. One good example is Metal. So Metal is another platform which is used by a lot many companies. It is like one very good assessment platform that proctors your candidates assessments and will not allow you to cheat in the assessment examinations and all that stuff. So Metal is one good example in like these assessment platforms. There are different platforms. So the primary rules, or what the primary requisites for these platforms is like very good internet connection. Secondly, web camera, because they would proctor your activities on camera. Third is like having backup, power backup, and all that stuff. So these are major factors which actually come in point. And depending upon the kind of platform, the test platform that you're using, it might vary, but these are the primary ones which would come into picture. Now, whenever we talk about any skill assessment or test platform, there might be different kinds of aptitude tests. There might be different kinds of entrance tests, or initial tests for screening tests. That's what they call in the job world or in any competitive exam world. So, what kinds of tests those actually can be? Very first and very popular is verbal ability. So this measures individuals' understanding for the language. So you can just count it like your English examination, where they are checking your grammar, your comprehension, and all that stuff. It might be sometimes into an MCQ format, or sometimes it can also be descriptive, where you are asked to relate or write an answer, a case study according to the problem that they give, problem resolution. Second is work sampling. So at this point, what happens, sometimes companies tend to send you a couple of assignments and they expect you to complete it in the given time frame. If you are able to share that, and if your assessment is found to be up to the mark, then you would be called for the next round of interview. So this is another kind of test that actually happens for skill assessment. Third is numerical reasoning. So now we have heard the popular examinations, scholarship exams, and all those stuff. So numerical reasoning will actually have that mathematics and quants and all that stuff, which will actually check whether how compatible are you with numbers, how friendly are you with mathematics and related phenomena. So numerical reasoning, very popular. Here in numerical reasoning, then we would also come across some MCQ examination formats, and sometimes it would also be to solve or show the working of some formulae and all that stuff. So numerical reasoning is like a mathematical test. Mechanical reasoning is like tests how you would conduct or how you would work on the machinery to solve the problem and get to the desired result. Data checking, nowadays, as we know that data is the new oil, so measuring the error or trying to find out the variance or plotting data, regression testing, all that part would come into data checking. And depending upon the kind of role you are applying, whether it is a big data role or data science role, it might vary. But data checking is also like, and in analytics industry also, it is very applicable. So data checking matters a lot. Then spatial ability displays a person's aptitude for visualizing images and 3D shapes. So this is very important in today's augmented reality world, because now as we are moving towards advancements in technology, so we need people who can actually visualize things which even do not exist in the real world. But virtually, if they are about to create such kind of stuff, so they should be sure enough that they are able to personally visualize it according to the factors or pointers they have into picture. So spatial ability is very important. And last but not the least is abstract reasoning. So this is also represented as diagrammatic reasoning. If we have gone through the scholarship examinations or entrance tests for different and higher education exams, we have come across the different abstract reasoning tests like logical reasoning, or uh, where you have to make out the patterns and you say solve different problems in case studies depending upon the logics or reasoning with a special reason. So again, this test can be in an MCQ format or in a case study format. So to just sum it up, we need skills actually to crack all these tests, because depending upon the kind of role we are applying for, it is necessary for us to be prepared beforehand, so that we will be confident enough to face such kind of problems. Again, two things which I would like to highlight here: one is cognitive ability tests. So cognitive tests are very popular nowadays for higher leadership roles, management roles, and also psychometric tests, which actually check your patience and how you would deal with such kind of pressure, timelines, timeframes, all that comes into psychometrics. So data checking, spatial ability, abstract reasoning, verbal ability, work sampling, numerical reasoning, mechanical reasoning, cognitive ability tests, and psychometric tests are some important parts, important frames which should actually be considered while going for any interview rounds, because or going for any application, because these in some or the other format will come in front of you. And these can be either in MCQ formats or you say multiple correct answers format or descriptive format. So depending upon the pattern the company or the organization follows, it might vary, but primarily we might come across all these variations. Now, personal growth would actually be possible only if goals, planning, motivation, creativity, vision, development, strategy, and learning all go hand in hand. It is only possible to grow ahead if you constantly learn, if you adapt to the new changes that are happening, if you mold yourself into the new world that is actually getting transformed digitally, that is getting transformed into different aspects. And nowadays, multitasking is also coming gearing up a lot, because we just cannot do one task at one time, as there is a lot much of scope ahead. People are learning, they're also earning, people are also researching on a lot of things. They are trying to get themselves into a better work environment so that they could adapt to a better lifestyle. And personal growth will only happen if you firstly decide what you actually want and actually work for it in a better manner consistently, so that you would be in a state, in a position to reach to your desired goal in the time frame that you decide. So goals, defining goals is necessary. Planning and execution are very important. If you just plan and if you forget about it, then that's not going to help. So planning is necessary, but simultaneous execution, consistent execution is very important. Motivation, you need to be your own motivator, and you need to seek motivation from your mentors, seniors, and inspirations, because that would actually help you in being on the right path. Creativity is something that can be gathered, that can be grown ahead depending upon the constraints that we are facing regularly, but creativity needs to be boosted in accordance with the challenges that we face and the learnings that we gain. Vision is something that stays with us for a longer period of time. So our vision should be clear. We shouldn't be in a blur vision, and we should not be into a position where we are ourselves confused. Why are we working, or what are we working actually for? Development is something that is a evolving process. So it is not like you will get developed in just a single day or two. Rome was never built in a day. It takes time to build big things, big personalities, but you need to regularly at least try to build some bricks so that it creates a big mansion sometime in future. Strategically, if you move, if you solve all your problems, discuss it with your peers, and come up with solutions. If you think critically and strategically, then that would really be a very good approach, because just going ambiguously won't help you in problem solving, and you would be in a difficult situation if you don't go strategically. And learning is necessary always, even if you are like on a higher end, or if you have like crossed the stage of being a graduate or something. And even after going for PhDs, many people tend to continue their learning, because learning is something that will always be with you. And if you see, the best part about this word learning is that if you just keep on learning, it will always give you the earning. So if you just exclude this L after learning, it is earning. So make sure you continuously learn and adapt to new things and reach your goals. So these all factors are very important for personal growth. With this, I would like to say a very important pointer before we sign off for the day, that is success will always be in these three aspects, that is what are your abilities, what are your skills, and what is your knowledge. And these three factors will play a very key important role in attaining your vision, attaining your dreams. So always keep in mind, you need to upgrade your knowledge, you need to always be confident on your abilities, and enhance your skills in a regular fashion. That's about it. With this, I would like to thank the tech platform and my organization, Delta the Innovators. For this research, I actually used Wikipedia, blog articles, some career workshop session notes, and some resources. This is all about today's session. And with this, I would like to call it a day, because it has really been a wonderful journey till now to work on different aspects. And now I would like to showcase you my LinkedIn profile, because LinkedIn is something, as I mentioned, cleaning off your social handles is very necessary, and LinkedIn will actually be your professional footprint. So you need to make sure that you have everything updated on your LinkedIn profile, and you can highlight your thing. You can mm, keep all your experiences here, add your relevant links, certifications, education, experiences, and whatever skills and endorsements you have. Recommendations would also play a key important role. So if you have your peers or colleagues who have actually worked with you, and you have worked with some of them, they are happy with your work or you were happy with them, you can either receive recommendations or give them the recommendations accordingly. And whatever your accomplishments and competencies are, you can note them here. So that's about LinkedIn. With this, I would like to hand it over back to Sophia. Thank you very much, Sophia.
Yeah, you done with the session?
Yes, yes, Sophia, done.
Okay, so is there anything which you want to add regarding that? Anything regarding the session?
Yes, just make sure whatever site you are applying on, it is a legitimate site. You don't fall prey to any unwanted people who actually ask you for money, because any which ways, you are the ones who is going to work, so you should be the one who should earn money. They should not earn your money. So make sure you don't fall prey to any such traps, and be sure always check for every role on the official company website. If there is something fishy about that link or something, please don't go on any risky links, because that might cause you a disaster, and then you would be in a tricky situation. And last but not the least, always make sure that you go through the job description before going for the job, because we just read the role and we are like, we know everything, but no, that's not the situation. Always map your competencies, your skill sets from your resume or CV, and see whether you are really fitting into the role. And if yes, if you are matching at least 50 to 60%, only then go for that role, because that would actually give you a higher chance of getting selected. That's it.
So, okay, sure. So it was a very nice session. And people, if you have any question regarding that, or if you want something else to be done, or you want something more information regarding the job, regarding the how to apply, what are the different portals, and where to go, where not to go. If you want anything regarding that, you can directly reach Mr. Shubham Dumbre, and he has also shown your LinkedIn profile where you can directly ask whatever you want to ask related to this session. And the earlier session was also based on the CV, resume, biodata, and all. You can also reach if you want to write your CV in a very good manner, so that the first impression is the last impression. That's all. And if you want to write a very good resume, you can reach Shubham also for that. So if you have any questions, any queries, any information which you want, you can reach us without any doubts. So
Yes.
this is the session, and any questions, reach us. Don't hesitate. And it's not like that. It's a very small thing, but it seems to be small thing that about the resume, the CV, but it's a very big thing, because there are so many people who are not able to write the resume. They don't know the proper way to write the resume or how to apply the job. So if you have any questions, so don't hesitate, ask us.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, Shubham. Goodbye for now, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you so much.